The king of NBA robberies, 0-point elimination game absolute travesties, the face of terrible max contracts of this era, Philly's Tobias Harris, now with the Detroit Pistons, securing that max bag from professional basketball stars to professional magicians, disappearing on the court, set their team backwards, ruining their contending hopes forever. Every season, there will always be a new Tobias Harris come playoff time, especially April and May. Those players will be put to absolute shame for their weak performance in late games, their legacy soon to be defamed. Years will go by, nobody will remember their name. These players just got paid, whether through free agency or expensive extensions, not living up to expectations, hurting their team big time. Starting with Jaden McDaniel of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Julius Randle, easy #1 scapegoat, but not all the blame goes to him. Big Mac, first year of his 5-year $136 million extension, looked like he's chilling after securing the bag. His defense absolutely great, especially last playoffs, but offensively a disaster. Still not quite the player he's supposed to develop to be, nowhere near the likes of OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Herb Jones, or even Luke Dort. For the amount he's making, Tim Connolly might be forced to trade him sooner than expected, giving him that fat bag like he's supposed to be Scottie Pippen to Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan. Minnesota in all sorts of funk. His narrow frame made him absolutely helpless against the big strong Luka Doncic. Despite shooting a respectable 43% from deep last postseason run, connecting on a 32% rate won't cut it for 82 games. Not good enough to be given 30 minutes. His ceiling not as high as expected, won't even be close to the offensive player Andre Iguodala was. If J-Max continues to remain stagnant offensively, stands in the corner, ball watches, catches his breath when he could be making cuts and help with screens, especially being 6'9", his contract absolutely a massive mistake. It's an absolute travesty. Minnesota traded franchise star Karl-Anthony Towns just to keep McDaniel's bloated contract on the books when Cat's 3 times the player Jaden will ever be, given his bad attitude and vicious temper, especially when his team's losing, alongside Randall's poor body language, a combination of disastrous consequences. Cat, the only player who shrugs off losses, maintains a positive attitude in helping the team move forward. His personality irreplaceable. Now everybody in Minnesota is pointing fingers in multiple directions. Having him alongside Randall, Gobert, and Wash Mike Conley on the floor at the same time, none of the 4 can shoot a lick from downtown. Making a little over 1-3 a game doesn't cut it, especially with Dante DiVincenzo breaking everything. McDaniel's simply worth half of what he's making. If he's not going to have any offensive confidence in his game, at some point his attitude will be one of the many guys who's already got paid, so why care? Unless Chris Finch runs more plays for Jaden, tighten up his handle, especially putting more emphasis driving to the basket, no matter how ugly it looks now, still better than not trying. Minnesota won't be serious contenders unless McDaniel averages between 15 to 19 points, getting outplayed by teammate Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Nobody will be surprised if the Wolves don't win another playoff series in the Chris Finch era. DeJounte Murray of the New Orleans Pelicans, an absolute failure of a tenure with Atlanta. The one-time All-Stars, already 28 years old, shouldn't have acted so arrogantly, trying to punk incoming rookie Paolo Banchero. Found himself traded to the bottom shelf of a cursed franchise who's supposed to go all in contending. All of a sudden, top 2 worst team in the league, who's the one getting punked now? Merry Christmas! Season opener, fractures his hand, underwent surgery. Of course, we heading to a new year. Murray's yet to play a regular season game with the disappointing Zion Williamson, and look how many weeks gone by. The first year of his $120 million extension, DeJounte should have perhaps pushed harder to be traded to the Lakers last deadline. Now Dyson Daniel looking much better for Atlanta than DeJounte ever was, not as talented a player, but the type of defense that was expected, a more natural fit with Trae Young. Murray's still a terrible outside shooter, under 27% from deep starting out the year, one of the most frustrating players, making around $30 million annually. There's a reason why he was traded twice in 3 seasons. San Antonio and Atlanta don't miss him one bit. The type of guy who's better sounding like a good idea for your team than his actual on-court impact. The Julius Randles of point guards. A Murray and Julius trade, absolutely a possibility. If Minnesota gets desperate, turning the ball over at will, a career worst 4 a game, while never averaging less than 2.6 in any of his previous seasons, a catastrophic record of 2-11 to start his third team, a plus-minus of -155, a wasted awful season for the franchise. New Orleans would have been better off if Murray took more time off and not come back till February. DeJounte's struggles, only 5% of the whole team's problems. Brandon Ingram, still no identity. Zion, never healthy. CJ's best days already behind him. New Orleans, simply not good enough competing in the West. Murray finding himself the face of the Tank Admiral. If he helps his team win games going forward, that'll only hurt their chances at landing #1 pick. Things not looking so well with DeJounte a #1 option. Only question remains for this franchise: who leaves first between DeJounte, CJ, BI, Zion, Willie Green, David Griffin, or their medical staff? The DeJounte Murray experiment in NOLA has gone as poor as anybody could have imagined, a complete waste of a season on his way to becoming a glorified journeyman. Nick Claxton of the Brooklyn Nets, franchise stuck in no man's land, no identity, 2 years post KD, post Kyrie, signed 4 years $100 million, only to throw tantrums, ejected 3 times in the 21-game span, ridiculously threw the ball into the crowd. The 25-year-old keeps talking about he's matured on and off the court and how he wants to mentor the younger guys, but here's the thing: true maturity doesn't need constant reminders. If you're really fully grown, it's not about what you say, it's about what you show. Action speaks louder than words, and so far, we haven't seen enough to back up the talk. From looking like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate back in 2023 to now just an average starting center. Still hasn't taken the next step offensively, emerging into one of the most overrated players in the league, a 7-16 record when he plays, Brooklyn 4-2 without him on the season. Kawhi Leonard, the most fragile superstar of this generation, a complicated legacy, the poster child of NBA load management given his degenerative knees. After he retires, perhaps nobody will ever know how he's truly feeling. Being an extreme introvert, won't share his thoughts. We might never know the full story. Playing under 700 total games, about 8.5 seasons worth, now in year 14. The audacity to suit up for Team USA, and mad that the Clippers sent him home early only to not suit up the entire first half of the 2024-25 season. Typical Kawhi Leonard stuff. 3 years, $152 million, absurd extension. Clippers be lucky if he even play 152 more games rest of his NBA career. An absolute travesty of a cursed franchise, multiple huge contracts given to Kawhi, already having a magnitude of injuries, forcing the team to get overrated Paul George by any means necessary. There's never a real honest answer. Oftentimes, his teammate and organization knows just as much as us, leaving his team guessing last minute whether he'll play or not. Is he gonna miss just a game, a week, or even months? From the Clippers tampering for him dating back to his Spurs days, his former trainer filing a lawsuit, the now 33-year-old accepting millions for sitting on the bench only hurts the team and fans. How convenient of him playing 68 games last season, showing he's healthy and securing another bag when he hasn't played that many games since 2017. Too many things regarding his health don't add up. Very suspicious when many thought he could play in the Olympics starting back in July, and now half a year later he's still not suiting up. There'll be a point in time real soon where Kawhi will actually be done playing altogether, resting up all year for the playoffs, and still constantly gets injured early in the postseason. What good does that bring? The Clippers franchise been doing Kawhi all the favors imaginable, trying to make him look good, but Kawhi Leonard himself never healthy when his team needs him most. Jamal Murray, time to wake up, ball out, enough of the slow starts. There's a reason why he's yet to make his first All-Star team. It won't be happening in February. Signing 4 years, $208 extension, been a shell of himself since after the Lakers series. That much money for a non-All-Star? Absolutely wild. Ignoring his Olympic disasters, Murray struggles just proving every day how amazing teammate Jokic makes everybody. Already being an NBA champ as the number 2 option, Jamal did ball out those 2023 playoffs, but after getting hounded by the defense of Minnesota, blowing a big Game 7 lead, looked like he aged 5 years since the title run. Still just 27 of age, way too inconsistent. If Jokic plays with another top 25 player today as his real number 2 instead of Murray, Denver easily the favorites to come out the West. Now they might not even make it out the first round, given the loaded depth of the conference. Already gotten his ring, huge contract, and now demands respect? Murray struggles to start out every season, known for being out of shape, then having some injuries here and there, forcing Jokic to play insanely heavy minutes, barely tries on defense, not the same physically, one of the worst starting point guards in the league, perhaps until playoffs if he gets it together. Playing 26 games without Jokic, his numbers pretty average. If he played on a team like the Raptors or Wizards, would Murray even help them win more games? From the ridiculous post-game statements after getting demolished by the Knicks at home, still talking about beating the Lakers in LA and staying in LA.
Guys have lives outside of basketball. We just beat LA in LA. Got some guys that are live in LA, so stayed in LA. And like I said, I don't think the focus was there from everybody. And that's what happens when you don't have a focus.
Too bad he don't get to play the Lakers every game. Sounds checked out mentally and physically, turning himself into one of the most hated players in the league. Murray might end up being most disliked from the diehard Jokic fans, could be the biggest factor, and Joker possibly demanding a future trade. Paul George, an absolute disgusting travesty of a contract, nothing more than a glorified fourth option. Numbers of 16, 5, and 5 simply ain't worth it. Another disastrous Sixers contract, $212 million. Clippers saw the writing on the wall. Even if Kawhi can't play, PG ain't gonna make a difference. Former teammate Norman Powell said it best, without him, seeing subtraction by addition. And look at his numbers now. George and Joel Embiid, the king of no accountabilities, having more podcast appearances than total wins on the season, no longer capable of carrying a team for a few week stretch when his best player is out, nothing more than a 3-and-D type role at his age. If there's one thing Jokic and Embiid fans can cry and complain about together, which one of their so-called co-stars have a worse contract between Murray and PG? One of the few big namers who mastered channeling his inner Doc Rivers University playbook, good at inventing new excuses, deflect, and of course ends up in Philly of all places. From playoff P to pandemic P, now podcast P. Sadly, Paul George not even remotely close to being a top 50 player this season. As for his teammate Joel Embiid, the process 99% complete in being an epic failure. Extended for 3 years, 193. Spent too much time medal chasing for Team USA. Knowing more basketball can lead to more injuries given his history. The soon-to-be 31-year-old, looking to be on the decline, had a short prime window to prove something. Over a decade since getting drafted, still 0 conference finals appearance. All these years, many question his work ethic, constant struggles with conditioning, the biggest flopper the league's ever seen, disengaged body language, called out by Tyrese Maxey. Somebody had to open their mouths from the organization to leak that out. Front office continues to allow their franchise player to behave with bad habits. The king of everything wrong with the modern NBA is an absolute abomination of a travesty. The Sixers playing on Christmas Day instead of the hardworking Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. Not a great month for the National Basketball Association. To lesser extents, Moses Moody and Terrence Mann both haven't taken the next steps. A moody time for Warriors fans, could be traded real soon. And now, half a year later, he's still not suiting up. Especially with newly acquired Dennis Schroeder, there's no room for Moses in any Steve Kerr rotation. Terrence Mann, 3 years, $47 million, the Game 6 Utah masterpiece, will go down as one of the most random super role player performances. Already 28 years old, still passes up too many open jumpers. Supposed to be deemed untouchable years ago, doesn't seem anything more than a 15 to 20 minutes a game guy. From Jaden McDaniel to DeJounte Murray not raising their games like many anticipate, to Nick Claxton fading under pressure as one of the key nets, to Jamal Murray not giving two craps after that $200 million plus extension, to the questions surrounding future Hall of Famers Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, players with all the talent in the world who continues to disappear and disappoint after their fat contracts. For franchises, owners, and GMs handing out these massive deals, the consequences continues to be devastating. Wasted seasons, shatter expectations, setting those franchise backwards For possibly longer than a decade, the fan bases left questioning the directions of their teams. The league needs to wake up and reevaluate, because these so-called stars now turning into some of the biggest failed gambles in NBA history.